tonight, the McLean sisters will be doing EFT, emotional freedom technique. Also, the slang term is called tapping, the tapping technique, or just tapping. And what it is it's an amazing, very useful, very simple way to take down emotional charge. Relax and kind of detach yourself from a feeling, a memory, just the emotional angst we get over a situation. It can be anything, though. It can be related to anxiety, tension, fear, eating, sleep, deprivation, all sorts of things. I've heard it's used for, to stop cravings for things, and not necessarily food. And it just takes down an emotional charge by very simply tapping on pulse points or pressure points along our head, around the face, under the throat, and under the armpit. And it's related to acupressure, but it's tapping on those points instead of just placing pressure. And then you use time to kind of vent your feelings, and then you reframe those feelings as you go into a little more positive words or phrases. And by the time you finish, you feel better. And it looks silly, but it's really effective. You can't really know until you've done it a couple of times how really easy and effective it is. But it's something that I have taught in yoga classes. It's something I've taught my students in kinesiology classes. And my students have used it for classroom traumas to calm individual students, students with behavioral disorders. Also, whole classrooms when a traumatic event or situation has occurred in the school. Just being taught so that each child can know how to self-regulate, just as, an extra tool in their toolbox. Because, breathing and counting, which is what was taught to me when I was young, count to 10, take deep breaths, all good things. But this uses a little more focus and attention, and it's kind of fun. You have to think about it, and you have to talk to yourself. And we know that the brain, in order to use like self-hypnotherapy, the brain accepts your own voice before it accepts anyone else's a lot of times. So if your mind hears your own voice saying things, you tend to buy into it and assimilate it quicker. So that's, those are some of the theories behind tapping, that it stimulates, it rewires your neural transmissions. It just causes you to focus on something and then change it up. It just change the emotional trigger, take it down, and change the way we think about the situation by dissociating from the feeling and feeling your body as you're speaking about it. It's just phenomenal. So that's kind of what tapping is. And then I'll have Cheryl talk more about her perspective.
Well, when I first saw someone do tapping, it was really very interesting, but I realized they're tapping on acupuncture points, and I do acupuncture in my office, so I thought this is really fascinating. You're speaking, you're kind of acknowledging an issue, and you're tapping, and then you kind of it's kind of a circuit breaker. It changes the way you think about something, and I've read that it is great for even PTSD, or veterans. It can be used for pain. Even you acknowledge your pain, but you acknowledge that I am getting better. I am doing what I need to improve. So it can be used for pain. It can be used for anxiety, depression, insomnia, just all kinds of things. And we've used it for to assist with weight loss, because I think almost everything has an emotional link. And there's a phrase that I have shared with patients, and I heard it long ago, and it just really stuck with me, and it's that our organs weep the tears that our eyes don't shed. Wow. So what that's saying is, if you don't process emotions, it will be stored in your body.
Wow.
And it will come out in some organ, in some, in some illness. And so we'll show you the points and a little bit of how it works, but like for example, first we start with the small intestine meridian, the point.
Could you guys real quickly, briefly, since everyone doesn't know everyone's background, tell us what your
Oh, sure.
both of your backgrounds, how this all came about, and how you guys both have come at it from different angles.
Okay, and I'll be brief. I'm a chiropractor and an acupuncturist, and I do a lot of nutrition work. I became a chiropractor when I saw my son. He was able to get off of Ritalin by changing his diet, and I thought this is incredible. This is really incredible. So I studied chiropractic and then acupuncture, and I help people a lot with diet and nutrition and healing our gut, and then they're just we cannot separate emotions from our health, and so this is one tool. And I do use some EFT, but many times I will find there might be one key point, like for you, this is it. So EFT is general and generic, but or for you it might be here. And so we can find the point that's specific for you, but really it's just an amazing tool. So that's a little bit about my background.
So you are Dr. Cheryl Shea from Complete Wellness.
Thank you.
And this is Ann Dixon.
I have an MS in kinesiology. I taught at Western Illinois University. I just retired this May, like a week ago. Thank you. And I taught mainly PE and exercise science students, and in teaching yoga and teaching comparative modern movement classes, I would always include EFT, not only to help my students deal with their stress management, because when you're a student, you are stressed and not eating well, and you tend to react rather than reflect, and we all do when we're young, and even now. But yeah, but I also wanted them to have it as something they could use in the classroom. So it was a useful tool for them to learn for themselves and for teaching. And they all would write to me, my students would write to me after graduation, after they were student teaching or they got their first job, saying, wow, I'm so glad you taught me this. And it's so easy, it's something I can teach my students, I've taught my friends and family. And because you don't need anything but your own body and your own voice.
So you has a master's in kinesiology. And then she's a chiropractor, so I just wanted to get the background, how they know the different parts of the body and stuff, so take it away.
Can you say what EFT stands for?
Emotional Freedom Technique, also known as tapping. Tapping's just easier to think of, yeah. I don't know who first coined the term emotional freedom technique.
Was it Gary Craig? Didn't he come up with the whole technique? And or that's a name that I associate.
You're probably right. I haven't looked at the literature in so long that
So we're not all on camera, but let's just introduce ourselves again since some new people just came in. I'm Sally.
I'm Anna.
I'm Diane.
I'm Jill.
I'm Joan.
I'm Julie.
And I'm Ann.
That's great. That's great. So we've got pictures.
Should we maybe just demonstrate some tapping, and then we can kind of go back and say this is what we were doing here.
So are you going to go over like what the acupuncture points
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's her job. I will show. Demonstrate. They first have you do a karate chop. And that's kind of like setting the tone.
Does
So-
it matter which hand?
There's different schools of thought. I've heard that taking your dominant hand and tapping with your non-dominant, but I don't think it really matters to me.
And I have to be honest, I karate chop
This way?
because then I'm tapping, I'm hitting
Both.
But most people will just, and the first point is right below this pinky knuckle. It's kind of like you see that line, that lifeline, I guess.
Mhm.
It's kind of like where that would come into your, So you can either tap like that, or I just go ahead and do that because then I'm hitting both acupuncture.
Yeah,
points.
that makes sense. Yeah, I like that
That's just-
too. Yeah. Cool.
So what is that doing? What are we tapping it for?
Well, first of all, the acupuncture point is small intestine 3.
Ah,
And the emotion of the small intestine is like indecision. And so I think that's one reason it's good. It kind of sets the tone of,
Yeah.
or they say it can be related to feeling like a helplessness. And so then when you're speaking, you're kind of acknowledging, and it's usually a phrase like,
I don't know how I feel right now. All I know is my head is hurting and I don't know what to do about it.
And you do it out loud.
Yeah.
yes.
How long do you do it for?
Oh, just a few seconds or a minute or so. You
Like,
can
so once
say it, you
stop
can
doing
repeat
this,
the
it's supposed to
phrase.
transfer to yourself?
Yeah, it's just really simple. You just hear yourself say something that, I have pain in my head. I don't know what I'm feeling. I don't know what to do about it.
And many times we just need to acknowledge or be heard. And so we're hearing ourselves.
what about I woke up in a bad mood and I can't get
Yeah.
out of it? I can't figure out why I'm in a bad mood.
Yeah.
My coworkers don't understand me. I'm never appreciated.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it could be
Yeah.
anything. It could be anything. My
Right.
children are making me crazy. My
And
children
it's
are
always
doing it.
this particular spot.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, it's right below this pinky knuckle. And yes, so then you kind of start with an acknowledgement of, a statement of your, whatever situation you would like to change. It might be pain, it might be frustration with something.
Is it good for chronic pain?
Yeah, yeah. And then usually there is a kind of a follow-up of saying, even though I would like to murder my children right now, I accept and love myself. Or, even though I'm not happy with my weight, I totally love and accept myself. Even though I have this chronic pain, I totally love and accept myself. So it's, correct, is that?
Yeah,
Okay.
even though, that is the common phrase. Even though I'm feeling this, it's acknowledging your frustration, your pain, your reactions, and then affirming it with, I love and accept myself. So it's grounding you in that feeling of ownership of you and valuing you. Yeah, it takes you back into your body and into your feelings and honoring yourself, which is really important. Because sometimes when we're feeling reactive, in pain, we lose our sense of authority, self-authority, or our feeling of how do we manage this? How it's hopeless, it's helpless. We spin. That's very common. So it kind of brings you back into the body and establishes your own authority over your reactions, your feelings, and your possibilities, your solutions.
So what about people that have a bad boss or they're not in a happy place at their job? How could that help them? They would just sit there and say, I'm upset with my job, I'm upset with my boss,
I want to
or
murder my boss.
before they go to work or
and
at work or what?
This is really the first step.
Yeah.
And so
There's
then.
more to it. It's like a dance. It's like a dance. It's like a Simon Says.
Yes.
So you go from here, and then you go. Do you start up on crown, or do you go right to eye?
I usually start
Start at the
here.
eye. Okay. I've seen different
But I
ways.
just-
Yeah. So let's start at the eye since right here. Do you finish up at crown?
I do.
Okay.
So it's
So
kind
one
of,
eye or both eyes or what?
It's the pineal or third eye, but some people do it right where your eyebrow starts or right in the center in between. I've seen it taught different ways, different, schools of training have, do it differently. But as long as you feel it, just kind of right, it resonates in your skull a little bit right here. Your pineal gland's right
and
behind it.
yes, this is kind of what we call the third eye. Right at the beginning of the eyebrow is a bladder meridian point, and so that's the one I usually
Only one eye or both eyes?
I do both.
Yeah.
If you
Don't
look
like
at some, yes, you can do that, exactly. And the bladder meridian, the emotion is about fear and shame.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, so, and that may not be an issue, or, or it might be.
Yeah.
It might be, but the words don't have to fit in with that, because then you just start talking about whatever the issue is.
Even though, like, we can go back to a work situation,
maybe
because
we
we can
should
all
just pick
relate,
up.
yeah, we can relate to having been under a hostile work situation or something we didn't feel comfortable with. Even though I really enjoy this job, or even though I like the job, my coworkers really frustrate me, I love and accept myself. You could say, even though my boss doesn't understand that I am doing the best I can do, I love and accept myself. Even though my boss is a giant dickhead, I love it. You can be crass. It's you you're talking to. So just, you can say anything. I've heard students say all kinds of things. And
But you're sort of taking it off the problem and putting it back to yourself.
Yeah, because you can't change the outer world, but you can change your reactions. All you can really have authority over is how you react and how you feel about you. That's it. But that can be all the difference. It can be changing the inside, changing your thoughts, changing your reactions can make all the difference. You'll find solutions, you'll let go of stress, you'll release muscles, you'll release endorphins, it's just, the brain and the body are wired together. There's neurotransmissions happening all over the place, and you do have authority over a lot more than you think you do.
And you might start talking in one way, and then you realize it kind of opens up other thoughts.
Yeah.
And then you really kind of start acknowledging maybe your feelings, your frustration, and then, in kind of maybe on the third round, you're then kind of moving into not really solutions, but maybe just a different way of looking at things, or I guess because you're not really going to fix
Right.
things, as you said.
But it can shift your perception, even a little bit, or just shift your neurochems. Your neurochemicals will just start to kind of shift differently. You'll start, releasing that cortisol and adrenaline, and you'll start having all the relaxed breathing, and feel-good chems kind of flood in, and you'll realize, it's not so bad. I can do something a little different, or I'm really not, I'm being a little hard on myself, or, I need to just think about this differently. I need to just sleep on it.
So do you follow a specific, you go from one part to another part?
Why don't we, you start here, and then again, I usually do the bladder, the eye, and then you do an outer, here, kind of like at the edge of your eye. That's a gallbladder point.
Really
If you
good for
don't have
releasing
one?
eggs.
You really needed it.
Have you ever noticed when you get like tension headaches, or when you have temple headaches, or headaches really close to the outer ridge, the orbital ridge of the eye here?
Those are
They're related to
Gallbladder
gallbladder,
headaches.
and gallbladder relates to pent-up anger.
frustration and anger,
Yeah.
yes. And then you usually come like right at the top of your what is it, sinus bone?
Right there.
Orbital?
Yeah, that's stomach 2. And stomach is about worry,
Oh my God.
okay?
Yeah,
it's about
Why
worry.
stomach 2 as opposed to just one stomach?
There's different points.
Stomach 1 is an acupuncture point. It's like right here, and you don't want to be gouging your eye out. And so stomach, so stomach point 1 is here, stomach 2 is here. And then just as a side, stomach meridian, again, it starts here, it loops down, comes up over here. So it's really involved in sinuses, rosacea. So that's just a little aside. But yes, stomach point, it's about worry.
So it's not going to help your stomach ache, it's going to help
Well, it
your-
might.
Oh,
No,
okay.
it can improve all kinds of things. Yes. And then the next point is here, right?
Yep.
And that is a governing vessel point. It's called governing vessel 27, I think, or 24. And the governing vessel, it actually starts near our rear, comes up all the way in the back, and ends here. And so it kind of governs our spine. And
And then the next one?
right here on the chin, and that's a conception vessel. And because it starts kind of in our crotch area and comes up here, and it because it encompasses the belly button, it really involves energy that we've inherited from our mother. Okay, because it involves our navel, so it involves that. I'm trying to think what else so that's considered to rule more of like our brain and nervous system. Okay, and then the next point.
The little bony protrusion right under the throat, but you know you have your divot right here, right? And it's the little, you have the bony protrusions on either side of your collarbone.
I kind
Yep.
of call them, yes, I kind of call them the knobbies of the
Mhm.
collarbone or clavicle, yes. And that's kidney 27, that's the end of the kidney meridian. And the kidneys are also about fear. Kidney and bladder are kind of brother and sister, and it's about fear. Now, when we were in school, we called these smart points. They really tend to focus you. We'd see before a test, we'd be hitting these, and then before soccer games, we were told to tell kids to do this to get more focus and concentration. And so it's a good point even outside of this technique. Okay, so that's kidney 27.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very soothing, I think.
Yeah,
It is.
It is. Uh-huh. And
Next
then
one?
kind of under your armpit. Yeah. This is called spleen 21. And it's the ending point of the spleen meridian. The spleen is, it's related to like the stomach meridian. It's called brother and sister, and it's about like obsession and anxiety.
So you're supposed to do both sides or just one side?
Well, you know, I do both, but in most of the things you'll see on YouTube, most people just do one.
Sure seems like you should do both sides.
You know,
Why not? Yeah,
sometimes
feels
I'm
more
feeling
balanced.
What about the other side?
sometimes I'm in my car looking like a monkey. You
Right.
know? It's like,
Absolutely. Yeah.
I
Sometimes in the
do.
kitchen you said
Or you
something
might
different.
alternate, you know, because really you might go through this
The cycle around a couple of
3 or
times
4
to the right
times.
and
Yes.
to the left.
So yeah, that's spleen 21. And also in acupuncture, this is a real right to left balancer. And so if you just feel unbalanced right to left. And in my office, I have a machine that can actually measure meridians, and sometimes we'll see the right side of someone's, all their meridians are very low and the left side's really high. So I have them do this tapping alone, you know, it's just, they don't have to say anything, they're just tapping, and it's just a good balancer. So, yeah, so that's spleen 21, and it's about anxiety. And then, top of the head. Top of the head, yeah. And that's another governing vessel point. I think it's governing vessel 20. And actually, like, I use it to bring, they call it chi, bring your chi upward. It's also good for things like hemorrhoids and prolapsed uterus, or, you know, it's just, so I mean, I use that in, but yes, it's,
And it feels good too.
it
'cause
feels
you can-
good, yeah, it does,
It just
doesn't it?
releases the tension of the
Good for
muscle
headaches.
under your scalp skin. You know, you feel it just kind of resonate in your head a little bit. And that is very soothing. You know, when you're a child and your mother, you know, tucks her chin on top of your head when you're a little child, and you can feel her hum or sing or even breathe. The vibrations that go to the top of a baby's head in the fontanelle spot, is incredibly soothing and regenerating and
Lovely thought.
yeah, and that's kind of mimicking that in a way. We don't have anyone do that for us unless we ask somebody specifically. But yeah, but it's a really nice. It really relieves tension. We just hum on my head. I'm gonna put my head right here, and you just hum. Yeah, but it's you know, I don't know. It's very. It's just a really nice earthy feeling, and it makes you relax. It does. It relieves the muscle tension around the top of your head. So, yeah. Shall we try?
So tell me, you get this one first.
And you'll follow, yeah, yes, that's the one first.
Julie, I meant to ask you, are you a physical therapist or
Occupational therapist, I'd be said, yeah.
Yeah.
So what problems should we make go away? Does anyone?
Who has one to throw out there? We can do one that I'm sure we can all relate to. We've talked about
Generalized stress.
generalized stress, yeah, because everybody's
That's a good one.
experiencing some kind of stress.
So, you know, a lot of times before people do it, you were asked, like in a therapy session, rate your stress right now.
Oh, right
So I'll think of it.
Yeah,
and
think of
then-
a number.
Then
Would
we'll,
you say before we came or right now? Because we've had yoga.
Yoga. Yeah.
So my stress
True.
level is very low.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
We've got to do something
But
there.
there's still some, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
The stress about what you're going to deal with tonight or tomorrow.
Yeah, just what you're experiencing right now in your life. Rate it from 0 to 10 on a scale. 0 being no stress, 10 being highly stressed. So think of that number that represents
Think of a
you,
number.
what you're going through. And then we'll do a couple of rounds, and then we'll rate it again. So
So you guys said something about there was counting involved?
not really counting. It's just
Not counting involved?
no. You can do all the points a couple of times. It's recommended at least a couple of rounds of it. Some people do 3 to 4 rounds. Some people work with a facilitator and they repeat, you know, it's like a call and repeat session, or you can do it by yourself. It's so simple.
I had worked with a therapist and we did some tapping and she would listen for your voice. She would listen for a change in your voice. She would listen for, I don't know, just maybe even a change in your face. And then she might kind of move the words a little different way of like, you know, kind of detecting that it just needed to move in a different way. So yeah, it can be helpful. I've seen it done with, like you said, a facilitator or a therapist, and they're kind of watching to maybe move it along, you know, in a different direction.
Is this done more in a group sometimes, like we are? Or mostly just?
I've done it. I've taught it to groups, but most people do it like. Well, my students teach it to their classes as well, but they do it alone too for their own.
I think you guys told us that the whole point of it is so that when you're in the midst of a crisis, you can
do it.
Right.
you can help yourself.
Yeah.
Well, you
So
know-
they're teaching us in a group, but
But
it's
you
for
could also
us to be
teach
able
someone
to.
else in a crisis.
A
if
few
you have
weeks ago, I
somebody
was
close to.
just kind of dealing with some issues, and I remembered, I think my daughter will forgive me, but she's had a lot of anxiety, and she's really worked, and she's done a lot of tapping, and it really helped her to deal with some anxiety. So I thought, okay. So I looked up on YouTube, and it was somebody that she recommended, and I just started, and you can look up tapping for almost anything. Like tapping for weight loss, tapping for anxiety, tapping for relationship, tapping for abundance, tapping for money struggles. You could look up tapping for almost anything.
Tapping for
And so I
focus.
did it for several days in a row, and I just saw a big shift, and it, so it's just a reminder of how helpful it is.
So if you're going to give us a sample of how we can do this, then I'm going to turn the camera off because I think it's something that maybe people want to be more personal about, that we don't want to be on camera about. But maybe you could just show us. You were just about to show us how to do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll let you do the words.
All right. So we'll do just one round to show how it's done or how we start. So let's do the pandemic. That's something we all have in common.
So are we watching you or participating?
You can
Participate.
participate. Yeah. Yeah.
Please, either
So we're
tap
gonna
like
do that.
this
Yeah.
or-
Or this. Man, the world has certainly changed.
Daily.
Yeah. Yeah, new life, some of us with new jobs, some of us don't know where money went, where money's going, even
Where it's
though-
coming from.
Where it's coming from. So much is happening, so much is shifting, and even though some days I feel like I have no idea what's coming at me next, I love and accept myself.
So is the even though, are those, and the I love and accept myself,
Mhm.
those kind of things that you always say?
It's easy, you can say anything, but that's an easy
Usually.
one.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because you can't always control
right,
other people or other situations. But you
Yeah.
can control yourself.
exactly. Even though it's just
Right.
that little bridge that carries you from, this is happening, but this is how I choose to feel. Yeah, it's just a shifting of macro to micro, something you can control. All right.
And then, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Are you?
Yeah. Oh, you be facilitator. Yeah, because you're so good at it.
No, not really. We're a team.
Okay.
I really felt stressed today. I was very stressed at work. Felt like I couldn't do anything right. Come here. People were late. Some people said they couldn't pay. My boss yelled at me. I got, yeah, I could tell the other doctor was upset with me. And we're gonna move down here. I felt like I could cry. I felt like I wasn't sure if I was in the right job, in the right profession. I held it together, but man, am I stressed. Really stressed about COVID. I'm worried about my kids. I wonder if my partner will lose their job. Come under here. I'm feeling so stressed. You know, I almost had to take a Xanax. I was that stressed. I'm not sure I've got the energy to go to work tomorrow. I'm feeling so stressed, I'd like a big glass of wine. Here. Big sigh. Let's see. We had something.
Sure. Okay. I just want to take 5 days off and not talk to anyone or do anything.
And at the top. Yeah. Yes. I'm not sure I want to go back to work. I want time off. I need to